Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sacred Remembering Podcast. This is episode 177, which is just such a cool number. And I'm so excited to bring Margaret Jacobson onto the podcast today. This feels like such a gift that you're joining us here today, Margaret. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better and to, invite listeners to get to know you better. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here. I'm so glad you invited me. Thank you.
Yeah, and you're wearing your red scarf, like this, sacred. We're going to dive into the womb today, womb empowerment, your brand Yin-care, and the mother rising. So let me read your bio, and then we will dive right in. Margaret Jacobson is a mother first to 2 young men and 1 young woman. She brings forward the medicine of the mother rising through her business Yin-care and the Yin-care podcast, where she assists women in remembering their own womb wisdom and how it can facilitate their own form of health creation in their lives. Margaret has a BA in Neuroscience and a master's in Health Services Administration, as well as trained in Wellcoaches coaching methodology. She has developed a successful infrastructure for the YAO company and the YAO clinic, the parent company and clinic associated with Yin-care. Margaret works with practitioners in bringing their message to women and aligning them with the Yin-care Ambassador Code. Amazing. So at the beginning of January, my son and I were going through another, energetic birthing. He just turned 16 this month. And there, was this like ferocity that was kind of coming through me, honestly. And I was feeling like the words that were literally coming through were the mother rising. And I reached out to Margaret. I was like, would you please be on the podcast? Because it was like this force was kind of coming through. I was just feeling it energetically. And I was like, I really want to talk about the mother rising and what that means to you. And of course, everything else you're doing. And then I'll also share that yesterday, I feel like I felt this from you. And we were sharing an email about like affiliate marketing and collaboration. And the email that you sent to me was like, I want to see you succeed, or I want to see you rise. I don't know the exact words that you used. And I have been like so energetically sensitive, more than usual lately. And I just felt this like whoosh, like, support. Like, and I was like, whoa, that's what this woman is bringing. This, like, I want to see women rise. I want to see this happen. And yeah, I have chills right now. Like, I was just feeling that it was like a force that you bring.
It's true. It is absolutely true. It is true. That is like, it is absolutely who I am. I think the people who really are close to me know that I would do anything for them. And, and there have been people that have fallen by the wayside of my life that have shown themselves to be unworthy of that type of love, but that is what I bring, and it is there, and it is totally unconditional. And it's just, I mean, my business model makes no sense. It's
pure love.
I'm really fortunate that, you were mentioning the company and the clinic. It is spelled YAO, but it's Yao.
Thank you. I was reading it and I was like, oh, dang, I think I'm saying this wrong.
No, I appreciate that you were careful with it, but yeah, so it's Yao Clinic and Yao Company.
Okay.
And that is, I can kind of, it sort of feeds into me explaining the mother rising a little bit as well. But they basically, my husband, he is the practitioner. He does Chinese medicine. And so he created those companies before I even arrived on the scene. And so I am fortunate that those are generating a lot of the financial backing to provide us to take yin care in this direction. So the history kind of behind it is I mean, I had these degrees, right? I went through this coaching training program. At the same time, I had gone through a terrible divorce, like nasty, really, oh gosh, what do you call, like, I mean, the man that I had been married to was psychopathic tendencies. Like, I wouldn't say full blown psychopathic, but like a mild psychopath as far as like that's concerned, but it made it really, really difficult. So,
and was it, sorry to interrupt, but like a situation like trying to take down the mother, I'm imagining.
100%.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. Yeah.
No, I mean, I had, restraining orders against me, and it was in the legal paperwork that I was a witch. Like, I mean, it was like, it was bad.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had custody totally taken away for long stretches of time that made no sense because I had moved myself into the area. Like, it was not good. So I was really fortunate that I had received a lot of guidance from a woman that was a clairvoyant astrologist, and she really helped me navigate it and see through what I'm trying to think, like, it really just see through the fog of it all, and to see the real player pieces. And in the end, many years after the whole thing started, I had fired still the kids were in high school, and I still had a couple of legal tweaks that had to be made. And I ended up firing the attorneys that had been working and took the whole thing on. And I ended up, the attorneys, I started seeing what I had to do to like, just get them to buckle. And I totally got them, like the little, the little Kung Fu Panda, like pinky tweak or whatever that he does. Like I fully had him right there, and they were like, and the attorney unleashed on me, like, we can't believe you're doing this, and you're a terrible mother, and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, what, at that point, it was like, whatever, you mean nothing. None of this means nothing. It doesn't matter. So anyway, what happened was at that time that I was going through the coaching, I was sort of formulating the coaching training in a couple of different ways, and working with people, women's health. That was always like a piece of it, really, in guiding them into, just understanding to take like these little baby steps in their health. And it really was everything that I still do now, but like it was more formulaic on a like a coaching strategy. And those packages are still available on our website. I tend to be better at like just doing these interviews and then like gathering people like yourself and boosting those things up for women to see these are the options. It's not to say that I'm not a good coach. I'm a great coach. I'm an excellent coach, but it's just not something that I'm like always out there promoting,
Right.
So it's there. But in any case, when I was looking for a name for the business, I had reconnected with my now husband, Daniel, and he just bursted out like it's the Mother Rising. And so then I actually tried developing the Kids Rising and doing this whole thing with my kids. And, some of their friends found the website online and didn't, were making fun of them. And stuff. So I'd like to forget the Kids Rising. But I think we still own that website, it's back there somewhere. But
that's nice that they would even like let you do that in the first place. Cause my son is like, I want nothing to do with it. Like his old therapist was like, you two should seriously have a TikTok channel that's like a comedy routine. And I begged him like, and he was like, no, I'm not going there with you. Yeah. Exactly. I love that they would even let you.
I don't think they really realized what was going on until they realized, they were pretty young at the time.
Yeah.
And now, and I will say that, actually one of the upcoming episodes for the Yin-care podcast is me interviewing my daughter.
I love that.
And it's just the coolest. It is such a good interview. I'm so excited for people to hear it. So, but she's 20 now. So and the funny thing is that my oldest son was like, I was on a call with him and he said, I don't know, I was saying, Carly's going to be on the podcast. And he's like, well, what about me? And I was like, well, what do you, well, what are you even talking about? I'm like, women taking care of themselves, really. And he's like, well, I could talk about how I help take care of women. And I was like, that's so.
Yes. Okay. So, the children are rising.
So they're in there. Anyway, so he sort of picked the Mother Rising, and it just was something I sort of grew into, and it became part of who I was. And then, I mean, it was who I was, but I also grew into the name as well. And I had a podcast at the time that was the Mother Rising, and most of the content, and I moved the applicable content over to the Yin-care podcast. So the older episodes are all kind of related to women going through great challenges in their life, and like divorce, but it doesn't have to be just divorced. It's really, just getting through different bigger challenges, so there's some content that's there for that. But what it is really, sort of come into being for me is really just taking the time to take care of myself and knowing where all of the, like you were saying, resourcing yourself.
Yeah.
And having the compassion and the deep love for my own self, knowing that I am part of unity consciousness and that I am this blessed piece of the puzzle that is, that is here, and that the only way for the energy of who this is to express itself is to clean the physical body up. Yeah. And so really what I focus on with Yin-care, and I just go by the name The Mother Rising because that has become just who I am. And I welcome other people to use it and invoke it, as much as is helpful in your own path. But really just helping women come into a reconnection with themselves on the earth, like what you're doing, and really reestablishing that connection to the land and soil, cleaning up the body, and that the body, as it's cleaned up, also becomes that vehicle that's helping the earth clean itself up as well. And so looking at women and their interactions with Western medicine was really fundamental for me in seeing that there's this really disconnect, in a sense, for women that are kind of pursuing this spiritual path. Like they're very deeply connected with themselves in their own spirituality, but if something happens to them physically, they're quick to go, well, I'll just ask at my primary care visit, or I've got my well check coming up, or I've got my pap smear and I just have to, and it's like, how are these things becoming the norm in women's mentality? And not just women, in everybody's mentality. Like, why is there, that is like a victimization, that is a kind of putting yourself in I'm beholden to this system for my care, instead of figuring out and empowering ourselves into how we can care for ourselves. And so the languaging that I like to go back to is, you are your own best primary care doctor. You are, you should be the one doing your own wellness check. There's no reason why anyone else should be able to tell you that you're well. And then the last,
and would you add mental health with it also?
Well, yeah, I would absolutely. I mean, what do you mean? Like, what aspect of it? Like,
well, I was thinking, seeking medications oftentimes for things like depression or mood imbalance where, you know, I'm turning 44. So like this perimenopausal, you know, pathway in life, like there are so many hormonal changes that happen. There's so many mood and mental changes that happen. And, yeah,
those are great questions.
I just, you know, and I'm kind of talking about some of this with my son as well. Like the world has just so many distractions and so many, like it's telling you what to do with your time and telling you what to pay attention to, you know. And then when we get kind of like in that river of activity and our attention span is out there in the world, we lose touch with sometimes ourselves and our bodies and our own mental health. And then we think like, oh, I'm depressed or I'm anxious or something like that. I know I'm going very vague with this, but
that's good.
Yeah. So coming back into that holistic, like how am I taking care of or the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, such that my whole system,
definitely,
I'm aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And not just like reaching for the external fix.
Exactly. Yeah. So being able to reflect and know when you're feeling depressed, when you know, I mean, it's hard because some people have been so depressed. So we're dealing with bodies that have been so toxified and so bombarded, frequentially bombarded in different communities, et cetera, that everyone's going to be at a different place. And I'm not saying that being on medication is always a bad thing.
Right.
Like it's a thing. It's a thing. And so you're either on it or you're not right now. Right. And so, but what we need to be thinking about is what's your exit plan? How do you get out of that? Because that is not the normal. And that is a dependency. And that is victimizing yourself to be you're dependent on a medication, you're dependent on a medical system, on a doctor that is totally set there to disempower you. They don't. And so this was the piece I was just going to say right before that, is that every time you go into a doctor's office, everyone needs to arm themselves and remember that they are a billable item. You just are. That is, if you go for your wellness check, there's no doubt that you're going to be, said that they would like to run this test and this test because you're in this age category and whatever. And why are they running those? It's not, why do I'm not saying that like sometimes you may go there specifically and go, okay, I really want this blood test because I want to know what's going on. Great. Then get it. Mm-hmm. But like if you're letting the doctor define all of these pieces for you always, then that's problematic. But yeah, it's super important to pay attention to your mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, all of the pieces. I mean, I've had times where I noticed like I'll dip a little bit. And so then what are my strategies for boosting myself up? And so there are some like natural things that and part of it is just the joy of exploring, dive yourself into the joy of exploring the options that are there, like things that you might not know about. Okay, push yourself, like sitting in the sun for 10 minutes a day. Okay, how can I fit that into my schedule? Or, I know that walking in nature makes me feel better. So I'm going to make sure that I get out, 15 minutes a day. And all the while, if you're on a medication, figuring out how you're going to slowly take yourself off of it in a healthy way.
And what's arising as you're speaking is like, we were just talking about this in one of the groups I hold called Structure and Flow. And it's like, we're given this framework where it's like, well, if you want to take care of yourself, it's going to be hard. If you want to eat right, it's going to be hard. If you want to get fit, it's going to be hard. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's not even true. It's like, there's a pathway to feeling good. and you intuitively know it, and your body intuitively understands it. And when you start to do it, when you like prioritize sleep, when you prioritize hormone balance, when you like choose the, you know, like hormone balance over the stress hormone stimulation through like extra caffeine, all of that actually feels really good.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it doesn't have to be this like restriction and self-fight, and you know, that's just such bullshit.
I used to say catch yourself, trick yourself. Like catch yourself when you're mentally, you know, doing that, and then trick yourself into doing the thing that you don't want to do. Like, I don't know, like just somehow like go, okay, well, I'm mentally thinking that going on that walk is a big deal. I'm just going to trick myself and I'm going to go for 5 minutes instead of 10. And the fact is that by the time you get 5 minutes into it, you're like, I'm going to go 20.
This feels
you know,
really
like,
good.
This feels really good. I'm outside. I love it out here. And why am I? And the problem is for me now, it's really hard to stop all the fun things I'm doing. You know?
Yeah. And
oops, are you there?
Yeah, my mic was muted.
Okay.
Yeah, last night I was buying a piece of fish at the grocery store, and you know, this man was like, "You want this whole fish?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, I cook the same things and then I eat off of them until they're gone. Like
Right.
I live by myself half the time, so like
Right.
I cook in batches. It's a way that I like eat healthy and save time.
Totally.
And he was like, that must take a lot of self-discipline. And I was like, no, it feels good to eat well. Like,
that's right.
That's it. Like, it feels good to eat well. So yeah, it's just
true.
one thing I'm noticing in the field. Like, we don't have to fight ourselves. Like, it actually feels good to feel good, and we can let that happen.
I can't wait for you to hear the interview with my daughter, because she's so amazing. Like, she's 20 and she spends a whole day like every week cooking for herself, and she is totally like reorganized her life and her school schedule and her work schedule so that it prioritizes her being able to cook enough food so that she has food all the time for herself, because she has to eat. She has like a lot of food sensitivities, and then has to eat every 2 hours. It's always been like a big issue for her, you know? And so, I mean, it's one of those things that we have to just sit back and go, where am I defeating myself? You know, where am I kicking myself in the butt here? And how do what is the next best little baby step that I can take, you know, to move myself, move the needle in my health?
Yeah.
And that is what health creation is. You are creating your health by doing that. You're not in a healthcare system. You're in a health creation mentality. You see?
Yeah. Creation rather than like survival. Let's dive further into womb empowerment, and like you work with the womb so much, and yeah, you've had a lot of career history in healthcare, it sounds like.
Well, I have a master's in health services administration.
Right.
And I've had a lot of personal women's health things, you know, that are, you know, I mean, I'm tapped in. I've had, I mean, when I was in high school, I'll just give you kind of a quick rundown of some of the things I've had. I haven't had everything that women have to deal with. Women have a lot of things that become challenges.
Yeah.
But I had a Bartholin cyst on the labia of my vagina when I was in high school, like several times, incredibly painful, like had to have those lanced. I had a cesarean section with my first birth, but then ended up having vaginal births after cesarean. And the last one was like, I mean, as close to what you could conceive prior to knowing that there was free birthing as a thing.
Mm.
It was as close as I could have gotten. I basically showed up at the hospital and then Carly came out, like, I mean, I had one piece of it that really was not, it was a midwife, like helping, telling me how to push to get her out instead of me fully doing it. But darn it, anyway, that was the closest I could get at that point in time
Right.
without knowing that was an option. So that, and then after that, I had a Hashimoto's hypothyroiditis, which is like a normal, sadly, a normal occurrence for women after birth. It will oftentimes come on. And so, and then I had a lot of breakthrough bleeding in my cycle due to malnutrition and such. So I was able to kind of work through, and then I was in a terrible marriage,
Right.
like, I mean, like really emotionally manipulated, more than anything. There was some light borderline, could be construed as a physical, attack, but it was mostly emotionally, emotional stuff. But wait, now redirect me back to, like, because you asked like something specific.
I was asking you about the health system and the empowerment and the womb
The womb
empowerment.
empowerment.
Yeah.
Okay, so the womb empowerments, basically, I created this kind of like a mantra that I would say to myself while I was focusing on my womb, that just sort of developed over time. I don't have it printed out right now. Let's see, like, if I close my eyes, it's like, oh God, I'm so in a different place right now. It's hard for me to like connect with.
Yeah, that's okay.
But if you go to yincare.com and you sign up, there's like a pop-up and it will send you the womb empowerments, and it's got a video with me guiding people through it, but you can also print it out. But I would basically say it to myself every day, like in 3 different ways. Like, just say it to come into myself, say it feeling like it's expanding, and then say it like all those things are coming to me. And okay, I'm a light shining bright inside human form. I'm filled with love, light, joy, wisdom, compassion, radiant loving energy, courage, peace, fortitude, grace, bravery, and humility. And so, like, it wasn't all fully complete, like I kept adding little things like as I would go through my life. And it just became like this incredibly empowering, meditation that I had for myself. And it was really anchored in my womb. And, it's been a constant to get back in touch with. When you've had a cesarean section, getting back in there's so much that happens that there was a lot of physical damage that happened from that, in that, not like from the surgery, not like the actual incision, but the contraction in my body from having the surgery, so that all the muscles in my hips just like pulled back in this weird way. And I had all of this hip unfolding that's had to happen over, gosh, this now 20, how old is he? He's 24, he's almost 25, like 24-year period.
Yeah.
And it was an emotional unfolding as well, getting in touch with what ended up getting held there, the anger and the emotions and all that stuff. So really what I come back to for women is that the womb really is this sense of, it's our sense of intuition. It's where we are anchored. It's where we get the guidance for knowing what's right for us, for knowing what's true for us. And so just being able to connect with that in whatever way you're able to. And again, like I said, it's a growing relationship. It's a dynamic unfolding, because it's a remembering. It's a remembering, like, your sacred remembering. It's a remembering of who we are.
Thank you for giving voice to all of this. And I love that you're naming it. And I feel that empowerment happening, like even as you're naming it. And one of the things I really appreciate you naming is that, from the cesarean section surgery, there was all of this that happened on all layers of reality, and it's been 24 years. And that in and of itself is so empowering for women to hear, because when we give our power to medical institutions and all of this, it's like, well, A, we're supposed to think that cesarean sections are normal. And, B, that you should just like bounce back. Like, and if your hips hurt, like, it's like, suck it up, or maybe some PT or something like this. But like, the unfolding of all of the layers and levels of healing, and naming, like, it's not normal. It's not normal to be disconnected from our womb, for our womb to even like, be disregarded in the first place, but then also just, totally. Kind of ravaged energetically in so many ways.
Oh my God. Yeah. You have no idea. So I'll add to that birth experience too. Yeah. This was like, it was such a weird, there were the other piece that was so strange in that was I had decided to, because my ex was not comfortable with like a home birth, or we were going to work with a midwife, but the midwives, basically, as we were interviewing them, they recommended, there was like this OB that they said was the guy that they go to when things go wrong. That should have been my red flag. Like I should have like thought, well, if that's the guy they go, you know what I mean? What I meant was like, if they go to the hospital, this guy is the one that they trust. Like, and so I thought, oh, he's friendly. Well, he ended up being, I think like in the end, I feel like he was sort of like this slimy doctor. Like, I don't, but okay, there's that. So, but he's practicing at the time. There was a smaller hospital. This was in the Bay Area in California, and it was Alameda Hospital, which is on a little military island, off of Oakland, and we were living in Oakland. And so we decided to go to Alameda. It's kind of a cute little town, and whatever. It seemed like a smaller hospital. Maybe we'd get more attention and everything like that. Well, they had like a visiting nurse that was taking care of the unit at the time. And it was a transgendered woman now. Like, it was a man, but I don't know. It was so awful for me. So like, can you imagine this? I'm in a situation, it's my first baby, and I can't even tell who this person is that's sticking their hand up my vagina. Like, it was awful. Like, I have no problem, obviously. I hope that's obvious that like people don't have problems with people, being who they want to be. But in this particular situation, when a woman is so vulnerable, like it was just like crazy. So that just like added to the confusion of the whole, the whole birth. I won't go into the whole birth. It was one of those long sagas, that ended up in a cesarean, but it did. But the other piece I will add is that the hip situation, in part of the unfolding many years later, it came to me that it had triggered a memory of a past life event that had happened. I think I determined it was either 16 or 32 lives back, where I was drawn and quartered. And so when you think about if you don't know what that means, it means that they attach things to each limb of your body and pull your body apart. Ooh. And that's exactly like how my body responded was to this cesarean, was to try and like pull itself back together. Like, because you can imagine being killed that way. You're just like, where did my body go?
Right.
So anyway, it's been like a full restructuring of the etheric, realm of trying to, pulling things back into their place. So,
wow. Yeah. I do know. Gosh, now I want to like tell stories too. I've got like the birth stories, you know, like they were trying to push cesarean section on me. I was 19 and giving birth. I got pregnant when I was 18. They knew that my daughter would be adopted. So they were treating me like shit because they were essentially like, this young girl got pregnant and her baby's not even going to be hers. So it was almost like I was like the machine that was birthing the thing, but you know,
that's
just
terrible.
So disregarded. But I was a wise one and an old soul, and I was not going to take the medication. And I was like, you know, I asked for my water to be broken to induce me because they wanted to give me Pitocin. She was 2 weeks overdue. So then, you know, I held off on the drugs and everything, and they broke my water and it worked. And a midwife had given me that like tip. She wasn't there with me, but she had given me that tip. So I held out. So I'm in labor and I was like, it's really fucking starting to hurt, you know? And what they did was started bringing the papers for the cesarean section. And I was like, no, you got to check me. I don't know where I'm at, but it really hurts. Like, check me. And for hours, they were trying to get me to sign the paper to cut me open without checking how dilated I was. And I refused it. And I was like, bring in the fucking doctor. Like, it hurts, you know? And she goes, quote, oh, no wonder it hurts. You're ready to push. I was like, so they would have just rather like cut me open.
Again, a billable item.
Exactly. Like it would have been worth more money if I had gone through that. But yeah, I mean,
absolutely. And without a doubt, it would be, they would make them more money.
Yeah. Yeah. So she gave me credit later, but then I also wanted to say to your quartering story, and this might be a little intense for women, but like, again, I'm glad that we're just talking about these things. 2 years ago, I went through a lot, and I've talked about it on this podcast, like, but it's hard to even sum up like everything that came up during this period of time, like in 2022. And there was like a reoccurring trauma that would happen, really in particular, like with men and resources. And a friend of mine was like, I want to offer you a past life regression. And usually I don't do those because I'm like, we can heal anything in the quantum, you know, but I was like, yes, like if she's feeling it, I want to do it, you know, thank you for any of the help that I can get at this point in time. And what we saw was that there was this lifetime where I was pregnant and I was trying to steal food from like kind of like a castle or something, to feed my existing children and myself because this baby was coming. And these men like cornered me in this like stone kind of basement of, you know, the way things were routed. I don't know if it was like the basement of the castle or whatever. Did horrible things to me and then cut out my baby and killed me.
Oh my goodness.
And I've never told that story before, definitely not on the podcast, but I was just hiking last week. And so I, you know, I've done work with that. Like at the time that came up, I was like, that makes total sense because
for sure.
I didn't get to keep my first baby. I've always had like stomach stuff, you know, for 20 plus years. Our children are like the same age. My daughter's 24. And
wow.
Yeah. And I was hiking last week and there was this awareness, you know, how when you're hiking in nature, the subconscious and, you know, all of the etherics are just like much more clear. That's why I spend so much time in the woods. And it was letting me know that I was finally healing it. And it was, or like it was concluding essentially. And I had just been doing some energetic trauma release work on my gut, kind of up under my rib. And then this week I had some more myofascial work on my stomach. And anyway, there's just so many layers, but it was like, I hadn't even thought of that for a couple of years, because that was like summer of 2022 when this was like really present. And it's like concluding in January of 2025.
That's the thing. It's like, I mean, there's so many things that'll come up. Like with my ex, I did some work, actually with Luma Lore, who's there with you there in Asheville.
I've not met her, but you've mentioned her name.
She does like energy readings as Oracle Pegasus is her. And one of the things that came up for me was, that my ex-husband and I had been part of this lineage that was being genetically like wanted, that they were trying to keep the line pure, like in an ancient, Asian, like kind of Mongolian lineage, which makes sense to me because I have obviously with the business that we're doing, there's so many Asian influences and stuff in my life, in that capacity, as white as I can be, but in any case, they were manipulate. It's so strange because what came up is that like we were being forced to have children to keep this line clean, but he was actually more attracted to men. And this was like a big secret that had to be kept. But that like my true love was actually the man that my now partner, so this whole dynamic had already played itself out in this other lifetime, and it was manifesting in this other way in the present lifetime with the same. So I'm just saying this to give voice for women to know that you don't always know everything all at once. It is a great unfolding. And so you can see by what Sarah and I are saying here in the practitioners that we chose to reach out to were that next best step in our health creation to figure out how to unwind the body to come back into its wholeness, And so it's really about coming into that womb wisdom of knowing and just tapping in, like, what is the next best thing? I mean, it can be, and like you said, making it simple. It can be as simple as, well, this week I'm just going to be drinking more water, or, you know what I mean? Like whatever, but some days it may be like, I'm going to go work with this energy healer, or I need a massage. I need touch. Like that's another thing. Like I will reach out. I have reached out. I haven't lately because I haven't felt the need for it. But at different times in my life when I just wasn't getting the touch that I needed and massage, I was like, I think I really have to go allocate money towards massage. Because I need someone to just touch me, even if it's not like sensual or they're not particularly like loving toward me. I just need the physical touch,
Oh, totally. This week, so Daniel James, I interviewed him on this podcast in August of 2024, and I had just gone to him for a session, and having a man's hands in that region, it was like more healing than, I mean, he's doing his work. He's like an incredible practitioner. He happens to be a male. And I'm like having this multidimensional healing about a man touching my stomach without trying to hurt me, without trying to take something from me, without trying to stick something in me. All of the above. And then I went back to him this week, and like, he's just pressing so hard on my stomach, doing this myofascial work. And I was like, this is the best thing ever.
That's so cool. That is so cool.
In my work, like I've done a lot with, I mean, given the stories I just shared, no surprise, right? But like how women get mixed up with like men, resources, safety. And we've had so many lifetimes and history and genetic influence of, needing to be dependent on maybe men or like the wrong thing or, for survival. And the
Yeah.
womb, I think, was, I'm going to use the word enslaved that way, like the way things were set up. But one of the things I really love about your story, and I would love to hear more about it, is like the rising up and out of, you've shared some of what you've gone through, and I know that there's plenty more. and then there's this rising into really sacred partnership,
Sure.
co-creative partnership, secure finances, lots of respect, the businesses that you're co-creating together. So that's very inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah, inspire us, Margaret.
I mean, okay, sure. Absolutely. Well, I think, I'm like, where do we start this? To me, this relationship that I'm in has a galactic story. So I'll just go with, so I do think that actually there were agreements that we would come together in this life, prior to arriving here. And that it was really that for all the work that we were going to do together, I absolutely 100% needed to have kids. And he absolutely 100% needed to not have kids. And so, but that there was a third party, that my daughter, and it's not to say that my sons aren't part of this picture, but that she really was meant to drop into being his daughter, but not by birth.
Yeah.
And so I say this because a lot of women will also beat themselves up about, or like there's this whole construct around like associating our kids with their biological people. And there's always like this need to like explain. And sometimes you just don't need to explain. Like nobody needs to be explained to. Like my daughter is the daughter of my now husband. End of story. That's what she says. That's what we go by. Like that's where she's at. Okay. So I'm just saying this to show you the depth of this commitment prior to arriving here.
Yeah.
Because what it entailed was going through pure hell to get to the end point. Like, I mean, that's what it felt like. Like it was so brutal. Like,
which I want to say, like, as soon as you say that, I hear the word purification. Like you're going through pure hell and you're purifying every step of the way. Yeah.
Going through the eye of the needle, right? Yeah. Like, yeah, it was exactly that. And it was, going into the deep under layers of consciousness to rise up. Yeah. And so, gosh, when that happens, you can't always see the forest for the trees, Yeah. And that's why I love this path of finding people will say like, find your next joy or whatever. And so it was really about like creating moments that were joyful to get to the next phase, and then being able to strategically organize our lives. But what that did entail on the physical level was, I was in California, he was in Denver, Colorado. My kids were in California. So for a while I was having to commute from California. I would go, well, sometimes it was, for a while it was just to visit him. And then because of this weird, terrible custody thing and my kids having to be schlepped around, he was like, why don't you, with your background, you should really be running Yao Company and Yao Clinic and you should really be running these things like that. That makes better sense than doing the Mother Rising coaching. And so that's when that whole got kind of put on hold. I kept everything like online, but really the attention was oriented around Yao Company and Yao Clinic. So then I would live for the sake of the kids to be in the same place, in the same house, and not having to schlep back and forth. they were with their dad for basically 20 days of the month. And I did rent a house in California, which was expensive. I mean, it was not, it was like an apartment, as small an apartment as you could get and have it be functional with 3 kids. So we were creative. We had a single bedroom and made like bunk beds with areas for the kids to live underneath with curtains, you know what I mean? Like they could have all their things. And then I had a fold out bed in the living room, and I would go there for 10 days of every month. I would pick them up on a Friday after school, have the weekend, spend the whole next week with them, spend the whole next weekend with them, and then I would fly back to Denver. So I did that for, I don't know, a couple years. And then at a certain point, my oldest was going to graduate high school, and I was having to go check on my parents, which were an hour and 15-minute, hour and a half away from where my kids were. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm having to go there all the time. I think we're at the place where the kids can come visit me if I'm down there, and let's just stop paying rent at this place. And so I moved down to where my parents were and just located out of there. And then lo and behold, within like a 6-month period after my, within the time, just after the summer that my oldest graduated, the other 2 wanted to move in with me. And so they ended up moving in and live. And I'm not saying that was easy. That was that whole last legal battle that was nuts. But they ended up living with me and my parents, and I was there for 20 days of the month, and I basically reversed it and went to Denver for 10 days. And so, but as far as the partnership was concerned, obviously that's hard, like all of that travel and like the pursuing that. But what it did do is the separation from being with someone all the time. Like there's this thing that happens, I think, for women, especially when they're in constant relation with a man, is there's this expectations, there's he didn't text me, there's these head trips, there's this, this need, this longing, this needing of it. And so because that wasn't an option, I had to go inward. I had to go inside and find where there was a lack of loving myself that was needing that elsewhere. And so that's literally gone on for years. He still commutes. Now we're in Wyoming and he commutes to Denver for a week, but now it's become like a retreat, like we retreat, we're totally in balance with each other now. It is a dance, and there is a lot of giving. And I think another thing that I see, and I feel like there was something that you posted that made me think about this, but there is this, it might've been about you had posted about like it was just recent, like the male voice, or what do you want for, a male energy or something. And I don't know. I commented, it was on your Facebook. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, it was a little controversial, but like, what are you noticing about the masculine right now, even in politics, that's like actually refreshing? Like,
right.
What good are you noticing?
This isn't politics, but this is in relationship, like in the masculine, like in that dynamic of expectations that we put on men as women, is that there's this sense that like they're supposed to like always feel everything and be so sensitive to everything that we are, if we're upset or if we're angry, they're supposed to notice, they're supposed to accommodate.
But
you know what I mean?
An expectation. Yeah. Right.
But the thing is, like that is so diminishing the power that we hold as women, because when we look at the fact that we're able to hold our space for a man to do what he needs to do, like he needs to go through certain things himself.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to be able to ground in and hold the space for that. And he's not always going to be able to notice those things. So I love this because it goes right along with the year of the snake and this introspective like space that snake holds, like snake going into the den and this like level of introspection. It's like, it's okay to retreat into that. Like if and know where your boundaries are. And certainly if you're being taken advantage of, snake knows how to, lash out if we need to protect ourselves like that, but we don't always have to expect, we can resource ourselves to really come into our own feelings and hold them. We can hold them and protect our feelings without having to feel like a man does that at all times for us.
Yeah.
And that ability really allows us to be strong for our man. And then the man like responds, and then not every man, like Daniel is not like one to be like massively affectionate all the time, and so we can say like, hey, I'd really like it if you would hug or kiss me more or whatever. And sometimes they're going to respond and sometimes they aren't. Sometimes it's just not in their personality. And we have to decide, is that what we want or not? Like, do we enjoy, is the rest of the piece of being merging with our energetic, sense and where we're going, that we want to stick with that? Or is that like a game, a deal breaker? You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a question I'm trying to formulate here because I recognize that I'm sitting with a wise woman in like a beautiful, it sounds like partnership, and with a lot of experience with coming into partnership. And I recognize through our conversation today, like this is perfect timing. And so much of what I'm personally going through is like, okay, the, underworld, although I don't know if I love that word, but the struggle and the getting free and the fear that my resources would be taken, and like kind of energetically shutting down for a few years because I was like in such a preservation mode after just so fucking much had happened.
Yeah.
And now I recognize like my heart is opening again. I always travel with the snake, but like I went deep with the snake again in 2024. Like I'm feeling embodied, I'm feeling empowered. And there are these questions kind of on my heart, maybe on my soul. Like my soul is starting to orient me toward partnership because I've always known like I'm here for union. Like whether I'm walking by myself or actually with a partner, I am here for union. And actually the last episode that I did of this podcast, I don't know if I did it well, but it's so interesting because I also told you I need to do that episode before I do this episode. Like, I knew something happened.
I think I listened to it too. So remind me what you said.
So I cannot believe it was only a week ago because it feels like months ago now. We were just talking about time and how weird time is, but I was like, how was that only a week ago?
I know, right? I know. It feels like, I know.
So much has happened.
You're bending time again.
Yeah. But, I was grappling with, like I have cultivated so much of my feminine, and like I've been through with myself through all of this and these feminine ways of knowing and what I'm here to do and what I'm here to build. And I want a partner that honors that, doesn't have to be doing it with me, but like if we're co-creating something, like our missions are aligned, that's all the better. I think that's very evolutionary for the planet. I believe that's probable. But it was like my heart opened toward an old friend, or like in relation to an old friend. And my hackles kind of went up because I felt that I was being assessed through like the lens of Christianity. And so I couldn't just, know what I know and be who I am and be honored and like be really witnessed in that. But it was like this, well, I don't understand you. Like that's what I felt like was coming from him. And I think like, this is why I'm saying I can't even believe that this was just a week ago, because I truly am like, I'm not even going to put myself inside of that construct.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't even consent to that. Yeah. So what in the world is the question?
Well, that's a deal breaker as far as I can't imagine you not being with somebody that would respect your spirituality in the way that it is. Like that, for me, that's kind of what I was in. I was in my ex relationship. We actually had gone to like a Unitarian Universalist church with the kids at one point, and we went there like as one of our counseling like things in the days that we were starting to split up. And I remember him saying like to the ministers or whatever they were, like, Margaret and I are on the same page. We're just reading completely different books. I was like, yep, that's right. And it was like, I could not have my spirituality. It was like this big secret. If I was burning sage, he'd be like, like, and now I like, it's one of the things I love about Daniel. Like, he went and bought all these incense, and he burns incense all the time, like in his office. Like, and he's not like sitting around meditating or anything. Like, he does Chinese medicine. He's working with people's energy all day. So he has a completely different way of interacting with his own spirituality. And it's taken me a lot of time to open up and share the deeper realms of what I am experiencing with him. Like, so I don't always share everything because he's really working in a 3D space. He's helping people that are really sick. And right now, like, so many cancers and things going on that he's saying, like, it's intense for him. So I slowly, like, there are different things. Like, I started doing this like vibrational meditation where you just like and bring your body back into alignment with your own frequency, And so I'll do it before bed. And when he's not here, I'll do it for like 30 minutes, an hour. Like, I'll just keep going because it's so relaxing to me.
Because it feels good. Yeah.
I get like so super deep. And so when he's here, I'm like, here's the deal. I'm doing this thing now. Like, so just deal with it.
Yeah.
And so like, I'll only do it for like a few times to just like ground myself before bed, and it's kind of, and we'll laugh about it because it's funny, but I feel comfortable at least just saying, I'm doing this. This is what I want to,
Yeah. 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 So, I don't know. I started to speak thinking that there was like a question, but I think what I'm acknowledging kind of for myself, and even you bringing that up about women kind of expecting men to be emotional, I recognize that part of my feminine shadow has been to go to analysis. Like, when I've felt vulnerable, or when, like, there's been something I didn't like, I analyze the fuck out of masculine and feminine relations. And that's literally how I started my business. Like, that's what I did,
Yeah, exactly.
And there's this aspect of not wanting to do that anymore. And also, like, not wanting to be alone. Yeah. Like, I don't want to just be over here cultivating all these incredibly deep things that I know about the feminine and what's happening on earth, but then also, not be met. So I just feel like the energetic like movement I feel like there's
someone else here, like, with us. I feel like there's some, I've literally never said that before, but my energy keeps going up every time you're talking about this. So I feel like what needs to be said is that, to just remind you what you already know, which is that, like, as you are creating your life right now as it is, and you're actively doing that, someone else is unwinding their life to arrive at the place that they're there.
Yeah.
So that's like an important piece to remember, that even though you have sent out the frequential like calling, that they're not always quite ready to show up because they're adjusting their life to be ready to be there, you know?
And I think I still am too. And I do have the sense that I needed to go through this with this old friend, almost like a cleansing. Like we had to come around that karmic
Right.
cycle kind of one more time
Right.
to I don't know, free that up or something. That's why I'm like, was that only a week ago? Are you kidding me? But then there was this other idea, and it's so funny because I had this idea in like 2022. Again, that same summer, I wanted to do like a podcast series with men that was like, help me find my husband. And but also like get really deep and vulnerable about like why I'm not ready. Like, and of course, I've been in a big cycle since 2022. So that idea came back this morning. So it's so funny that we're talking about this, because I was like, on my own podcast, I don't know if I'll do this or not, but this creative idea of like having men interview me. Like, are you really ready to be a wife?
Right.
Right. Yeah. What do you think, Sarah Poet? Right. And like, are you really ready? So that's interesting. This like full circle moment.
Great. That is cute. I like that idea. That's really cool. It is so, it is such a joy to be a wife. I have to say, like being a mother, being a wife, like, it is a joy to be that sacred, fire holder for the family, the hearth holder. Right. That's really what the womb is too, is like, it also has these like tentacles that reach out to all the people in your realm. So the womb, like one of the things that I used to always beat myself up, like I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that, and I should do this and I should do that. And, I mean, there's layers and levels of like that become more perceptible as you go deep into yourself, even though you've maybe shed a lot of that already. Like there's still like these weird little things that like pop up where you're shitting on yourself that are so dumb, because you know that you know better to trust the universe, and you know better to trust these things, right? But I used in coming into this quiet space and being more introspective and allowing the time for that and allowing the time for my own healing, I started realizing that I don't actually have to do anything a lot of the time. That like just me holding that sacred flame for everybody is the biggest thing I can do. And so I'm like this touch point. Everybody touch it. I'm an only child. So my parents check in with me. My kids check in with me. My husband's checking in with me. Like everybody's always, and you can feel it energetically. But of course, like, there can be a lot of texting, like a lot of that. And so it's like I'm the grounded centerpiece, and everybody's getting I'm holding their space sacred for them.
Yeah.
And especially my daughter, until she's really able. And then she is so capable now. Like, I just can't even believe it. She's just doing amazing. But, you kind of hold that lineage. You're holding the lineage sacred and allowing for them to go off and do their things. But there's something about it. Like you're this anchor point, probably deeper into the earth. And so getting a space in your own physical home and coming in connection with the womb, and grounding that into the earth like you do so well. You do that so well, Sarah, really reconnecting women with that and understanding that we are facilitating this connection with the grids.
Yeah.
Right. And you can imagine all of that coming back up through the body of yourself as a woman, and then how people are energetically tied to our womb space. I mean, you can even actually go back as a woman coming into your womb. You can find the spaces in your womb where your baby attached their placenta.
Mm.
Like you can feel where those, as you get closer and closer in, you can feel where those little scar tissue is. And,
Mm.
and that is a spot to be able to just, you know, keep connection with your family, you know, and you
Mm.
can feel where you planted yourself in your own mother.
Wow. A word that you used is like such a special word, hearth. And I just think
Oh,
that this is just something to lift up. So hearth, I mean, God, it's like one of the top most gorgeous words for me. Um, but it's also made of heart and earth.
yeah. Oh, that's right.
Like we have heart
That's true.
and earth in hearth, and it's, yeah, I mean, the center place between the heart and the earth is the womb.
Mm-hmm. It is. I'm really coming into right now for myself this interesting, deeper, like long lifetime knowing of how the functioning of the heart and the womb together,
Yeah,
like as actual physical mechanisms, not just energy centers,
yeah,
but that these, like, there's some technologies within the physical structure of the heart and the physical structure of the womb that are working together. And I'm just like, I feel like I've known this technology before in a past life.
right.
And so I'm just, it's another place of sacred remembering, you know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I did some interviews with women on this. Erin Fisher is a woman who is dialed in about that
Mm,
technology. She's Well and Wise Woman on Instagram. And
cool.
then Thea, I think her last name is Hornbacher. I'm so sorry, Thea, right now. And I've interviewed her as well, and I am trying to look up her. Um,
I'll check it out.
I don't know if I'll get it, but she is, yeah, Thea Hornbacher on Instagram, and her handle used to be the Solar Womb. So I don't know what
Okay.
work she's doing about
I'll
the
check
solar
it out.
womb anymore. But yes, there is, right? And it's the sacred remembrance. And I've been thinking about that recently too. It's like coming up again. And obviously it is, you're mentioning it, but this remembrance, and I was channeling something a few months ago. I think I put it in the podcast about the electrics changing, like the electrics of
Mm,
the planet, really, because
mhm.
like the masculine electrics are actually changing. That's one way to verbalize it. But I think that the electrics healing on the planet is actually, I don't know how to say it, like it improves that heart womb connection, is like part of what I was intuiting.
Mhm.
Like the communication mechanism is
Right.
like restoring
Yeah.
between the heart and the womb. And the male heart, like the masculine, there's a return to the heart in service to the womb
Mhm.
that, I mean, in my opinion, has to happen for the evolution on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And until the man actually comes back into the heart and like that electrification of the heart, look at me analyzing men again. But, you know, we all do this within us. Like, what is your
Yeah.
heart actually serving?
Yeah.
And is it serving the hearth? Is it
Yeah.
serving the heart earth?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
connection. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, I just define partnership for myself. That's it. I need that
Well,
man.
you know, I mean, I would say it's true. And I would say that I have seen that happen for Daniel. But I would say that the way that he has come more deeply into his heart is through my ability to hold the space for his heart,
Right.
you know, and that is because of my hearth, of
Yeah.
my heart earth connection,
Right.
you know. And so that's why it's so important that women do the work that you and I are encouraging, and that they hope, I'm very wishful that they feel inspiration from this to take the next best step for them, whatever that is, you know?
Yeah.
And I know, yeah, like, I mean, I love what you're doing with your, what's the class you referenced it, the class you're doing right now on schedule. I don't want to say
Structure and
scheduling,
flow.
structure and flow, because it's structure and flow. I
Yeah.
love that,
Like women's
because
energy, really, like where we put our energy.
yeah, because if we can work that piece out, all of these other pieces start to fall into place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Our resourcefulness. And we'll talk about the inner resources and the outer resources a lot, but like since the beginning of, things going awry, women who are so naturally giving, like we've invested our resources, like we've given our inner resources, or they were just expected, or systems were set up so that women had to give of their inner resources and deplete. And so, like, we are clearly through this conversation, we are undoing this energetic lack of womb sovereignty that I don't know that women chose, but I mean, maybe consciously, unconsciously, there was a time where we kind of needed to do that for survival, and that time is over. Like we don't need to do that for survival anymore. And we get to do this rising in a very feminine, earth-based, womb-connected, loving way, like you're saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know, it's super exciting, right?
Yes.
I think it's like amazing. I just like, I love it. And that's why I want women, so passionately to embrace their health as an exciting thing to come into, because the layers that unfold of joy and pleasure and love and freedom, and it's like it's just the coolest thing.
Yeah.
It is.
And I love, I was kind of like making a little list, like, okay, what are our suggestions? like, okay, we're going to take back our energy. We're going to take back our joy. We're going to take back our right to feel good. And if that means like drinking more water or going out and spending 10 minutes in the sun, we're choosing that. We're choosing self-love, like every single day. And choosing, I would say, like acts of sovereignty, like sovereign decision making. Like, this is not going to happen for my family anymore. This is what is going to happen for my family. And that's exactly the reason why I invited you on, because I was like, the mother is rising. I'm setting these new energetic, expectations and templates, and like it's happening, and there's reverb in my household because I'm naming that there will be changes. But it's like the false occupation, Mary Costello and I keep naming it the false occupation. It's over. Like we were just saying, false occupation of the womb is over. Like it's ours. It's it always has been. And
absolutely, I would, absolutely. And as far, I mean, it's a full circle back to what you mentioned in the very beginning, which was like that you were feeling the mother rising with this interaction with your son. And the other thing to remember in that actual aspect of personality with being mother is that mother is not always the best friend. And I used to always say to my kids, like, okay, I can't be your friend right now. I have to be your mom. Like this is, like the differentiation. Like, so you cannot do this. That is like, there are, you're at this age, I'm your mom, end of story. I will say, oh God, what is it? there was a guy, and actually one of the interviews, I think I kept it on the podcast, was, I'm going to have to go back. Love and Logic. Have you ever heard of? Yeah. So I interviewed him. I'm forgetting his name right now. The founder of Love and Logic. I interviewed him about basically dealing with kids and divorce and stuff like that. But he had recommended this thing of saying, like, I love you too much to argue, like, and it's like, anyway, they know they're loved. They know they're loved. That's like when you do those things, like when you allow your mother to rise, right? Like that, it serves everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, you sitting there in your like beautiful red, it's like a flame, like the scarf that you're wearing is like a flame. And I'm like, the hearth is just like lit. It's lit.
It's lit. Light it, ladies, light it, and let your mother rise.
Rise rooted, right? All right, Margaret, I want to begin to wrap up here. If there's anything else you want to share, but I also want to make space for you to share. You mentioned the womb empowerment video and meditation that's on your website. And then we were going to give a code for 15% off any coaching appointments that women wanted to make after hearing this, and that womb empowerment, that healthcare empowerment. What would you like to say about any of that?
Okay, so let's see. Hang on one second. I just lost the image of you. I'm trying to find. I know it's over here. There we go. So I have to get the code. I still don't have that code because I totally forgot.
Sarah 15 is what you told me. All caps, cool. Sarah, SARAH 15 for 15% off coaching.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that is 15% off. And I think it was for everything on the website. I will go back and make sure that it is for everything. And it was for, I think we did it through the end of February.
Great.
So it's for a whole month if you're interested. And there's products. Yin-care's Herbal Wash is our main product that we bring in that's good for damp heat conditions. It's really well known in the Chinese medical community, and a lot of women actually already know about this. It is for damp heat conditions. In those conditions, you'll get things like yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis. A toxic heat condition would be like HPV. It's good also as a dermatological application for skin conditions. Can be, it's a little bit more tricky to be applied, and you kind of generally have to work with a Chinese medical practitioner. But because we're doing this, if people have questions about the use of it and you're curious, or you have something that's like psoriasis or eczema or something like that, and you want to be able to apply it, or toenail funguses, just reach out to me at Margaret, MARGARET at Yin-care, YINCARE.com, and just ask me how to use it, and I'll give you some guidance on that. And then there's all kinds of other things on the website that are fun. We will also be doing, so the Yin-care podcast, if you sign up for the womb empowerments, that'll keep you in touch with the Yin-care podcast. I believe, as well as just everything that's happening with Yin-care, any courses that we're launching. I will be doing, I don't know if it'll be in March or April. It's going to be free. It is a gluten-free workshop. And the reason it's free is because I want to get this course re-recorded. It's not necessarily that everybody wants to be gluten-free, but if you are making any other type of dietary change that's challenging, like, I don't know, you're removing some other food from your diet, or you're trying something new, this is a great lecture because it covers like social aspects of making big changes, like how you manage with dealing with family or friends, or going to parties, or those types of things. Label reading when you're going to the grocery store. So it's a really fun, uplifting workshop. So if you're on that womb empowerments list you'll keep on the radar. There's also a course that'll be coming up that's like how to work in tandem in a healthy relationship with your healthcare provider to really empower your womb health. And that really is tapping in deeper to some of the things that we talked about at the beginning of this, like where trust is broken down between a practitioner and a woman, and how to reestablish that in a healthy way, or to know when that relationship with that practitioner is over, and how to move on, and how to find these things for yourself. And that one is more, that one will be a paid, more like a 6-week workshop, but it'll be super fun. And so you'll definitely want to stay in touch with that. And otherwise, the Yin-care podcast is on every 2 weeks, and you can find that on YouTube if you want video, or Rumble, or it's also on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for audio.
Oh, I love that you're doing Rumble. I've been like contemplating that, because some of the topics that we talk about here are like, you know, may not be on YouTube.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I like that.
For sure.
And that's all at yincare.com, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All at yincare.com.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for holding the energy of the mother rising and coming and sharing this transmission with everyone here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. And I just love our conversation. So I know we're going to have lots more. So it'll be really fun.
I don't want to stop right now, but I'm looking at the timestamp and I'm like, okay, it's time to wrap up. But yeah, it's very much to be continued. And thank you for all you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you all of the listeners that hung out with us today. And please reach out to Margaret at yincare.com. Reach out to me at sarahpoet.com. For anything that we can help you with. Like we love it. This is what we're here for. This, inspiration and women's sovereignty, and really coming back into our power and our rising. So thank you very much. See you next time.